call, so I'll go through this quicker. I'm Mary Thompson. I've got about 15 years of experience working with small and medium-sized companies. I've also worked with larger size companies, but I think that my heart really lies with some of that smaller size companies as well. I've been working with Business Central for about 2 years now, and starting in 2018 when it actually came out. I'm actually also work with D365 Finance, and I'm a certified finance functional associate as well. I've done a bunch of different implementations and also created some fun power apps for Business Central as well. And then I also have my bachelor's degree in business management with some accounting. So I probably know a little bit more accounting than I do the actual tech stuff, but that may be questionable at times. So, anyways, like I previously mentioned, D365 Business Central is a comprehensive end-to-end business management solution that empowers a small business owner to run their business in such an efficient manner that they don't even realize that they're handling the financial aspects and operational side of it, but really allows them to focus on the reason that they got into business in the first place, and that's meeting their customers. Um, Three key aspects of Business Central are that it's located on the cloud, which allows businesses to really be in tune with all of the most latest and greatest updates from Microsoft. And so for small businesses, a lot of times you have compliance issues, or not compliance issues, compliance concerns, right? And there's a lot of those things that maybe you don't understand what it fully means to be SOX compliant or different aspects like that. But no worries, if you're on the cloud with Business Central, Microsoft takes a lot of the responsibility on making sure that its systems are compliant with those new updates and upgrades. So as long as you're on the cloud, you'll always be compliant with that as well. As well, it's also on the CDS, which makes things like Power Automate and Power Apps super efficient and easy way to customize Business Central to meet your small business needs. And then it's also highly integrated with the rest of the Microsoft ecosystem. As I previously mentioned earlier, there's been a significant amount of growth in Business Central in the last couple of years, and I kind of bring it back up in this section because I think that I really truly believe that one of the reasons that it's really going to grow is the things like Power Apps, App Source, and Power Automate. Because what you're doing is you're empowering your small business owners to go out to the rest of the world and bring that information back in. That's what Power Automate is allowing, and what I feel like it really does for the small business owner is it allows them to connect and bring the rest of the world in to meet them right where they're at as well. So that's really important. I think that that's why we're going to see a lot of growth in it, is because it's really what customers want. With QuickBooks and other systems, you always have to do what that system told you. Now you're going to tell the system what it's going to do for you. So Power Automate and Business Central, they both lie on the central data services, so they are easily integratable. Microsoft has done a really great, excellent job of creating about 14 out of the box templates that are super easy to plug and play. There's a few drop downs for each one of them, and it empowers the most basic end user to go out and make a difference in their company. And that's what I really love. We'll actually take a look at one of these templates in a little bit as well. But beyond just the 14 out of the box 14 templates, we also have, I think there's a little over 20 different triggers and actions. So maybe you don't like the templates that have already been predetermined to you. Do not worry. The world is your oyster, and you can have whatever you want inside of Power Automate, basically, with these triggers. It's whether a record has been created or updated or changed, or you need an approval, or you have to get something, or you have to delete something. Just a bunch of different aspects. So if we think back, since most of us were in our case earlier where we talked about Donna, right? In our business case around having a small business, having a lot of data and a lot of transactions happening right inside your email, right? So those customers that were going off. So every time you can create a flow where every time a new customer is updated in your system, then maybe something else happens or another person takes an action on that. So that's an example of a trigger or an action that can be taken as well that's not inside of a template. As we've mentioned many times, it's inside the CDS. And also in Wave 1, Microsoft, they put out over 100 different updates on Business Central in just April of this year. And one of those that they made sure that they improved on was really making the CDS integration more of a seamless effort. Again, they're always listening to what we need. And so they asked a lot of partners and developers and citizen developers, hey, what could we do to make this integration process better and really amp it up? So they listened, and we have a better system. Again, circling back on app source, these are all the different components that the triggers can go out. Maybe they have actions that they do right inside the Microsoft ecosystem, or they're going out and they're getting additional information and bringing it back inside Business Central here through app source. And there's over 650 different solutions that are all vetted out by Microsoft, so you can trust the products that you're putting inside your ERP system. This is really important. I've mentioned this a couple different times, and I kind of wanted to reiterate it again. And make note, if you go to https://aka.ms.bc ideas, they want to hear them. So if you're new to the product and you're testing it out and something doesn't quite make sense, go here, get an idea, and let them know. And also for all of the pro devs and citizen devs and everyone that's using the product, make sure that you put all of your ideas here, because that's how we get the product that we really want and how we continue to see growth and opportunity inside Business Central. These were the numbers that I was mentioning earlier. So over 78 ideas were delivered in the last 2 waves, I guess, between what the clients wanted. And you see 249 votes were represented. So I think that's pretty exciting. And I think that one thing that we see is very consistent in the Microsoft world is that if we want it, we get enough people to want it, they'll listen. So let's keep making it happen. All right. So we're finally going to get into some of the demo aspects here. And before we get started with that, there's a couple different things that have to be set up inside of Business Central for us to get that going. And so you have to have your user set up, you have to have an approval group set up, and your workflow user set up. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. This is the template that we're going to look at as well. Let me share my screen again. Great. Okay. Let's change our company because I think I have this set up under this one. Okay. It's another thing that I like. As you can see, it's very easy just to switch between your different companies. What we'll do first is, like I said, let's check out our prerequisites. So what you do is first you're going to go into users. So you go to user setup. As you can see, there's user and there's user setup. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have your user setup. I think I previously mentioned this as well. These will come in from your single sign-on user list. So if it's not there, you need to set up your user there first. These are ones I pre-added. So we have our admin approvers, all of these. There's some different aspects that you can do here. If you wanted, you could put in your salesperson codes, but I don't have any of that set up right now. and then their email addresses. These are the two basic things that you need here is kind of the name and the email address. And then once you have your user set up, then you go to the approval user setup. So this screen is pretty interesting. There's a lot going on in here. This will give you where you can identify all your different user approvals, whether it be for sales or for purchasing, and what you're allowed to essentially invoice or sell, and what you can the limit that you can purchase and sell and approve as well. So that's everything in here. You'll cover those areas. Moving from left to right on the columns, we have our user IDs. Again, we have the purchase order code if we wanted to put that in. The approver ID. This column here, what it's doing is it is identifying who it can approve the approver. So we see here that we have Mary can approve the approver, or Mary can approve Donna, but the approver can approve Mary, right? You have to have them interlaced because you can't approve your own is basically what they're trying to get at. So now if I wanted to identify a limit here, then I could say maybe the approver can't approve anything or can't approve a sales order over maybe $500, right? Then you can identify the dollar amount there. Same thing with the purchase amount for approval here is if they could only approve up to a certain amount. So we'll see that a lot of times in businesses, right? You're going to have a hierarchy. Maybe the front line, maybe the entry person can put in an approval for up to, let's say, $100. So they can request a purchase order for up to $100 before that has to kick off to the next level and get an approval. And then that person can maybe only approve up to $1,000, and then maybe the owner has to approve on that top level, right? So that's where you would identify these amounts here. You'll set it up in two different places, but this is going to be the first one that'll give the constraints with inside Business Central. And you'll see that there's a request amount and there's an approval amount. So the approval amount is obviously what you can approve, and the request amount is how much you can write a purchase order for and request an approval upon without it having to be approved. So what I always recommend is whenever you're trying to get these flows set up the first time, go ahead and just have everything on an unlimited status and make sure that your flow is running properly first before you're trying to troubleshoot these dollar amounts, because sometimes that can be a little bit tricky, especially if you're one person trying to go in and out of all of the different environments and get that set up correctly. Finally, you will have an approval administrator, just kind of has one person be over everything. I always set that up as myself. And then what you have to do as well is for the notification setup here. So you have to identify for each person that they're going to have a notification that's going to occur, right? So if I get an approval, then I want it to email me this person instantly. And it should say, there we go. Okay. And then let me do that on this one real quick too. Okay. And finally, this last one, just to make everything consistent. Okay. Make sure that worked because it didn't act like it did. Okay, great. All right, so now we have our approval users all set up, and then we have one last area to take a look at. So we'll go to the workflow user groups. So this is important because people always want to know, well, if somebody leaves an organization, sometimes setting or resetting up all your workflows can be really frustrating, or maybe break, or what happens if that's a small team, right? How do you manage that? Well, with the workflow user group, it kind of helps alleviate some of those issues because you have people associated with the group. So if one person leaves, it's okay because you still have this group, and the group is the one that has like the overall power in it. Excuse me. So we'll take a look in here. All you do to set up a group, I've got one set up here already. I abbreviated it POA for purchase order approval, which I have as the code down here. And then I've got my description. And then in here, you just add whoever you need to put in your user group, right? You can delete them, you can add them. Now, the sequence code over here, this is for the hierarchy that I was discussing earlier. So if it needed to maybe be approved by one person first, and then if that person wasn't there, then the next person, etc. If you needed to set up a hierarchy, then you would put that here in the sequence number. But if you don't care and just anyone can do it first, or whoever gets to it, then you can just leave them all as one, which is what I'm going to leave here for now, just to avoid any issues. Okay, so now that we've got our template, we've got our prerequisites done, we'll go ahead and jump over here into Business Central. We'll use the waffle to connect to Power Automate. So like I said before, there are a bunch of different templates that are already available. As you can see, these are the 14 different out-of-the-box options that are listed. And it's funny because I chose a session on the purchase order approval because, as you can see, everyone loves this topic for some reason. It's like 1700, and I've got a YouTube video out there as well, a tutorial that I created last year when I came back from D365 Saturday and learned how to do all of it. And out of all the videos I've ever had, for some reason, that one has the most views. So there you go. So we'll go ahead and click on this one right now and get started. So as you can see, if you're familiar with Power Automate, then you're familiar with a lot of what's going on here. I just absolutely love that it makes everything so nice and easy. And now I've been working with this stuff for about a year now. I wouldn't say that I'm an expert, but I'm often amazed at the leaps and bounds I've made since last year when I first learned all of this material. And I know that I was so new and so clueless, and I just know that this screen was so helpful because I could say, okay, I know where I'm going right, or I know where I'm going wrong. If I need to switch an account, everything was set up right here. So this was kind of like my safety screen, like I'm gonna be okay, we're gonna make it. And of course it gives all the different options of the programs that we're connecting to. So as we come into here, as you can see, it's got everything laid out for us, and it makes it really nice and easy. We're here in the production. You see that there's a couple different ones. Well, there would be, but we just have the production for right now. And then I previously set, when we were working in here, this is not the screen we were working in different. We were working in World Max is what I wanted to pay attention to. So we need to make sure that we line up the company name within that flow, because otherwise it won't be consistent. You'll wonder why it doesn't work. Now, because this template is super helpful, it has everything kind of pre-filled for you. You, of course, can override and change it, but what it's saying here is, what do you want me to pull from this, for this approval? What are we looking for? What documents are we filtering? So it's saying I need a purchase order because it's pulling from this template is already predetermined. So it knows I want to pull it from the purchase order as our document type, and I'm going to look at the order. And then I want the status to be open. you could change this. That status is going to be related to, you'll see here in a second. So here it's saying open. But if I had a different one, maybe I wanted to say everything that was approved, or I had some type of different status option, then I would, that's where I could identify this one here. So now this third head condition is asking you to say, okay, what is the dollar amount that we want to look at? This is saying, I want you to start this flow for all approvals that are greater than $0. So essentially, that's gonna trigger all of them. But it's also saying, not do I want you only to just look at the amount, but it also needs you to look at the amount, including the VAT tax. So everything. But perhaps depending on your business requirements, perhaps the business or the end users don't want the VAT tax included, and maybe they're only particularly looking at the total amount of the purchase order prior to tax. So just an area that you can customize that depending on your different, business needs. Additionally, this header condition where it's greater than greater than $0, maybe you don't need to approve everything for, $0. Maybe you need to approve everything that's over $500. Now, if you'll recall, in Business Central, when we were setting up the approval user setup screen, and we were looking at the different dollar amounts and limitations that maybe each user could use, this has to be consistent with the minimum amount in there, or your information won't trigger correctly and your flow will fail. So it's one of those areas whenever you're setting this up, it's pretty easy, but the only difficult thing is I recommend being very organized and kind of maybe having an Excel spreadsheet or something that identifies your users and their limitation levels and identify that you've got that consistently mapped between both places. So now if you wanted to add an additional filter field, you could do that here in this fourth condition. So perhaps maybe you wanted to only approve certain purchase order people. So maybe it was a certain user whenever they have one come in, or maybe a certain currency code, then you could identify a different filter if you needed. But for now, we'll just keep that plain. So again, like you see, most of this is pretty filled in. So all we need to do is drop down into company. And then we have the row dynamic. So this is saying, what are we getting? We're going to go to the production environment, go to the World Max company, and anytime, and I need you to go to the workflow purchases document table and grab the row ID. Then I need you to use that row ID and get starting an approval, right? And that's where this is starting to come in and say. So it has first to respond. You can, when I identified earlier, again, mapping, like I just discussed, this is where that hierarchy could come into play. If everyone must approve, then you would have to go through a series of 1, 2, 3s, or wait for all the responses. You see that you have some different options in here. So depending on how strict your business is would depend on what you need here. For all intensive purposes, we don't have many rules, so we're going like this. So one of the only areas that you don't have filled in for you is you're going to have to put in an email address here. So as you can see, it's obviously going to pull in from your single sign-on. This has to be consistent with all those users that you set up. Again, mapping. Make sure what you put in Business Central is what we're tying out here. Probably already a broken record on that, but that's that important. Then, of course, we have all of these dynamic information that we can use here, right? And this dynamic content amount. As you can see, this one says for VAT, but you could add different aspects here to this language. This is going to be the subject. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is going to be the body of the approval that's going to be generated through Outlook. So this is how you can modify. Needs to be approved. Please let me know what you think, right? I mean, it doesn't matter. This is where you can just you can edit your information here. You could also do additional linkage here if you wanted as well. Maybe if you wanted to bring in that line item, then you could do that. You have different options here as well. Enable the push notification, add the email of the person getting the request. It just has all these different information that you can add as well. So then after we have the approval part, then we're going to look at conditions, right? So if it's yes, then what are we going to do? Okay, well, we got to fill in the company here. So this is great. And then it will approve it. As you can see, it's taking this workflow step that it pulled up from up in here. It got this information. See, we got the workflow. It got the information. It's going to approve, and it's going to spit this information out down here. And if you approve it, then it's going to send this email back to the person that it was requested by, right? We've got some dynamic language in here. And then the subject is going to be purchase order is approved. Let's say get it ordered, get to work, whatever you want to tell them to do. And then again, we have the body where we can add some additional language or smart content as well if desired. Filling in the same information on the other side, again, just running through it, is this. And that's it. So as you can tell, all I've done is a whole bunch of talking and very little clicking. That's what I love about it. It's you're just filling in the name. I mean, you have the template, you fill in your name. That's basically, you know what I mean, for the basic out of the box to see how this functionality will work. And then I'm going to go over here. Yep, I already saved it. I like to rename, see this requester approval? No. I like to have very distinct names to make it easier to identify what I'm looking at. Saturday. Okay. That way, when I want to look at something later, I know where it came from. There we go. Great. So we can close this now. And it's on. Let's go ahead and test it. Oops, that's not what you did. All right, I'll go ahead and test it. So let's switch our companies real quick, right? Because we have everything set up in World. I don't think I have any purchase. Let's see if I have some vendors. May have to. Nope, you know what? That's okay. This will show you. So some of the stuff when I talked about setting up companies, on this one, I only did the production, so I didn't have any sample data. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to come back in here. I'm going to edit this flow to show, instead of this, I'm just going to change it to Cronus because I know that Cronus has dummy data, so I'm not going to have to worry about creating production reports on the fly. I'm sorry, purchase order reports on the fly real quick here. Make sure I got everything. So as you can see, when we're changing this here, it actually shows you really how easy and all that's going into this. Right? Yep. So it's just a couple different places that we change the company name. Everything else stays the same. Shows you really how easy all of the plug and play approval aspects of it is. Because this is single sign-on, my username is applicable in whichever company that I've got it located in right now. Great. Okay. So we're going to save this again. And now we're going to test it. Wouldn't be a true D365 Saturday without little demo hiccups. All right, so now we've got our purchase. Let's get to our purchase orders. All right, so we'll come in here and, oh, that one's already released. I'm going to get an open one. You see released means I've already approved it. So I was already in here playing. Already having fun before y'all got here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do request approval. I'm going to send approval request. And when we come back over here to our flow, you should see that this thing has kicked off. Great. I see my email came in here, so I know that it has. I've got a lot of quotes to get out. That's okay. I've got business inbox, so I can take care of these quotes for everyone very quickly. Sorry, humor. So here I've got my approval that it came in. We see that it was requested by me, for me, right? That's okay. I've got a different sign in, so it'll be all right. And it has the date. This is all the information that we asked for it to do. We told it in that smart language. We said, give us the purchase order, right? So this is unique to what's actually coming out of the system, totaling for this amount. And this, so all this came in right from there. So we can approve everything from here. If you wanted to jump into, Business Central and take a look at it, as we looked at earlier, you could jump into all of that from there. But because we have all the information here, and what you can do, right? So let's talk about this for a second. The point would be to really identify and modify this approval screen that's circling right now. To modify that approval screen so that it is going to meet your business requirements, so that you don't actually have to jump into here into Business Insights. Even though it's right here, you should probably make it whatever your customer needed. Otherwise, you're making them click more than they need to click. So that would be my advice, is modify this to exactly what your customer needs. Whenever you're taking those requirements, figure out every aspect that they would want on that email to be able to hit this approval button and never think about it again. Because if you don't do that, then you're kind of missing out of the opportunity. So we'll say reason, looks good. You don't really need a reason, but we'll just have one for fun. Okay, so let's see if we can check on our flow over here. And because I'm the one person stop shop here, you see that it actually looks good, right? This is what I just sent. So not only you can see that when we have this set up, that it will send the approval out, right? Like we told it to. And then it also, that second condition was saying, hey, once you approve it, or if they approve it, come back and go ahead with an email and let that person know, right? Because if it was two different people, and we're looking at this from a business case concept, right? We'll go back to Donna, Prima Donna, and her clothing line, right? So this purchase order would be approved, and then maybe Jeremiah or somebody else that she has, right? Then they can say, okay, now I can go get this ordered, right? I've got the approval, and they never had to talk. And with a few click of a buttons, like maybe the person sent the purchase order, it was approved and sent back in a matter of clicks, opposed to maybe some traditional purpose would be walking this piece of paper all the way around the office. And you can't do that when everything's online like we have been. So it's a really nice aspect that you can do there. And then if we go back here for a second, tell us in a second, I think that it was successful. We know it was successful. We saw it be successful. But interesting. So yeah, I think that's, again, it's not a lot of rocket science. It's really just kind of getting used to it and putting some of the language in here and modifying that approval process. So I think I've got plenty of time for questions this time, if there's any. Let me take a look. let's see here. Can the order be attached to the approval? Yes. There's some markup language or some additional flow that you can do to add that into the thing. It looks like somebody answered that already as well. How to set a trigger when document is created, like purchase order. Oh, so yeah, so there's a trigger in there. I think that's the question is, I think the question is how to set a trigger if a document is created. And so what you can do is whenever you go, let me jump back in. So let's see if I was going to create a flow, let's just start an automatic flow and we'll say, whatever, customer. Oops, actually, let me try to find that exact. Sales order. Okay, yeah. So let's do a sales order then. We'll do sales order. Or what is this one? When a sales document approval is requested. Or I'm going to skip this one for now. I'll show you what you can do here. These are all the different triggers. I was going to show you this. I'm glad that you brought this up. With Business Central. Oh, somebody want to, I don't know if that was, sorry. So these are all the different triggers, right? So if you don't want to use a template, these are all the different triggers that you can automatically start with. So when a record is changed, when a record is deleted, these types of different aspects, and then you can identify. So when a purchase document, when a sales order approval, or general journal, you can plug and play these different aspects here. So let's say for Cronus, so then for this table name, this is where you're going to identify which one it is. So if it's maybe a customer that you want to look at or employees, you're going to identify which table that you want this action to look at first. So for this one, maybe for sales orders, right? And then when you come down to the next one, you would say, I want you to, when a record is changed from this, I want you to get this, right? So then you would put in the next part of your flow to do your next desired action. But basically there's like over 20 different like triggers and actions, as you can see, that are similar to this, like when a record is changed, that you can personalize to meet your needs. So hope that answers. How to add a custom value instead of selecting from the table list. You can create custom connectors and APIs. So you would be able to create a custom one to go out there and get it for a specific field or value. Oh, nope, I hear you can't yet. I see it now. So I'll stop with that one. Thank you, Steve, for answering that. Let's see. Before approving. So on this one, how to view the purchase order on the email before approving. So with that business insight, so there's two different things. Like I said, you can modify the body of the report so that you can look at that and have an additional flow in there to do that. Or you can also look it on Business Insight if you want. Use Power Automate instead of the inbox. That's a great question, Adrienne. So the question is, if you use Power Automate instead of the inbuilt workflows, does it stop the user manually releasing the PO by adding some form of record restriction? That's a really great question that I would have to test the restrictions on that, unless somebody else is smarter than myself right now and has the answer to that. But I can definitely look into that and get you an answer back on that. Anything else? Any other or any? I mean, there seems to be a lot of input from y'all out there. Is there anyone else maybe that has? I don't know if I can throw it back out to y'all, but if anyone else has any maybe other awesome Power Automate approval tips and trade tricks that I didn't, that I missed out on, I'd love to hear them as well. Or if you want to throw them in the message, etc. What is let's see here with the trigger when sales purchase document approval is requested. What is the different essential? So a lot of it is the setup. I like the flow and the setup for the Power Automate versus the inside the box options. So let me show you that real quick. Workflows. So these are like ones that are already there, but if I wanted to do a new workflow from template, these are all of the ones that they have already. And it just runs it through all of this screen. I just prefer, I mean, ultimately, if I were to go back to the one that I looked at in here, that I already created, you see this Microsoft Flow. These actually look just the same, right? So there's not a lot of difference in some of the setup and the creating of them like this way. I just personally prefer to do them inside of Flow because it's easier for me. And but they're essentially Business Central is utilizing the same Flow concept, which I think somebody else said. Yeah, so Flow can be easily customized. So that's part of the aspect of the fun part of it. And for me personally, it just makes more sense visually for me. That's why I tend to use it as well. Yeah. All right. Well, I think maybe I'll kick it back off to you, Raz.
Thanks for that, Mary. Yep, so that's a really, really great, obviously a lot of nav world, especially are not familiar with flows, and so that was a really, really great introduction to flows, and yeah, lots of excitement around that. So thanks to again, Renee says thank you, and yeah, there's lots of questions around getting used to flow, and we will have another session with Power Automate, should I say, later on. Again, but this was a really, really great way of getting started within Business Central with Power Automate. So thanks again, Mary, for that. So Mary, look, you've done 2 back-to-back sessions, so I know you must be exhausted. So guys, is there any final questions for Mary before Mary goes? Hey, everyone's just saying thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
Mahmoud saying thank you.
Yeah, you guys, maybe I don't have all the answers, but let me switch back just so that you have my last little screen. So I think I had a lot of people already reach out to me, but just in case you need it again, here's my little curious screen. Go ahead and get a hold of me. If you have more questions, I'll do my best to answer all of them and help you, especially maybe as that may be related to Power Automate and an accounting concept. And if I don't have the answers, I'll help you get them.
Great stuff. So yeah, so Stephen Renders saying very good session. Thomas Hutter, thanks Mary. Mahmoud, thanks so much Mary. Renee again says thank you. Yeah, so as well, I would also like to say thank you for obviously 2 back-to-back really great sessions. Just what the community needed, especially a lot of the the nav consultants and developers who are looking to upskill and get familiar with the new age, really. So thanks again, Mary, for all for your time today. And yes, everyone, make sure you connect with Mary. She's doing lots of fantastic work in this space of finance, and not just with Business Central. Is that correct? You also work with the other FinOps tools as well.
Yeah, by trade, they actually, well, I'm currently seeking new opportunities, but by trade, technically, I guess I'm a finance consultant prior to Business Central. But I have to say that my heart really is in Business Central. I guess one last fun takeaway, a lot of questions that people often ask is, well, what's the difference between Business Central and FinOps, right? That was one thing that a company that I worked with a few years ago, we really looked at as Business Central came out. And before I said, QuickBooks tells you what to do and you tell Business Central what to do. And it's funny because I kind of switch that up when I go into the difference between Business Central and FinOps. Is that FinOps is super, super customized, and you're really starting from scratch. Whenever we were setting up those companies for Business Central, we had that one that it was like setup data only. And honestly, it like basically fills in your posting profiles, your vendor posting profiles, your customer posting profiles. I mean, it'll set up your chart of accounts, and so there's a lot of aspects that you can really do inside of Business Central that with FinOps, you have to go and you have to set all of that up. But it's great because you can make that system do whatever you want. And so what I'm getting at is when you're looking in terms of Business Central versus FinOps, you tell FinOps what to do. And Business Central, prior to my understanding of Power Automate, Business Central used to tell you what to do, but now you can do Business Central. I mean, you can basically tell it what to do. But that's one of the biggest things is that there's a lot more customized options inside FinOps, where Business Central is a lot easier. It's a lot more plug and play. And it can hold up to, I think maybe it's like 100,000 different transactions. So we always say small to medium sized companies, but depending on the transactional level that you have, I would even venture to say that some big companies can go inside of that and skip outside of FinOps as well. So there's my Business Central plugs.
Awesome. And so look, a lot of people have been in a situation related to COVID where, yes, so look, it's great to see that. Look, for if you're a customer or a partner, look, Mary, highly recommend Mary. So please reach out to Mary. Yes, so carry on, please, the community, if you can carry on asking your questions in the chat window. Feel free to carry on, or if you've got anything else, please feel free. Mary, I won't obviously take up too much of your time. I want to thank you again. And what we'll do, we've got another 10 minutes until Jose Azevedo joins us. So we will have a short 10-minute Q&A and break on the private channel until the next session begins. Thanks again, Mary.
Thanks. Have a great one.